Hi, Cubs, and we're gonna start our read aloud for today, the Phantom Tollbooth. But before you do that, I want to apologize for the confusion yesterday with our read aloud and our shared reading. What Miss Candleberry realized only this morning was that I thought that I made a post with our read aloud and just our read aloud. But Dojo was having some weird stuff, but then it said it posted, so I didn't go back and check. And then I posted our shared reading. But when I posted our shared reading, I realized that somehow I used the same, even though I had shared reading, I put the read aloud link in the shared reading post. And then there wasn't a a read aloud post, which it never got posted. So I know now when Dojo is having problems that I need to double check my posts, even if they say they're posted. And I apologize for the confusion. So if yesterday you didn't hear yesterday's read aloud, in yesterday's post, it does have a link to both the shared reading and the read aloud. In case you didn't, because we are going to start. I want to say thank you to all my Cubs who responded at all with either information about Phantom Tollbooth or for our shared reading about the good egg, because they're all in the same post. So thank you. Several of you told me what macabre means, which is, remember, the official wish's name is Faintly, which means a little bit, macabre. And so I think that Mason came up. Everybody who gave me definitions gave me great definitions. But Mason had disturbing and horrifying because of involvement. So basically saying it's a little bit disturbing and horrifying. And what is a little bit disturbing and horrifying? Well, remember what Faintly Macbre did? She had told people basically not to use any words. That's why she's in jail, right? She told people her job was to help people know what words to use, and instead she wanted to keep them all for herself. So she told people basically, don't speak. Remember, she said silence is golden, and then got herself in trouble. So that is kind of horrifying. It's kind of disturbing, right? Just a little bit, which is why her name is Faintly Macbre. So thank you, friends. I believe it is Mason, Diley, Shannon, Caden, Tanish, and I think also Shreya and Nishvita and Sarvanch. So those are my friends who gave me the macabre definition. So today, to remind ourselves, we are starting from chapter 6, which is Faintly Macabre's story. Remember, she told Milo at the end of the last chapter, the only thing that's going to help her get out of jail, because that's what Milo said he wanted to do, right? Because is the return of rhyme and reason. Now, pausing to explain what rhyme and reason even mean. You know what reason means, right? Reason is like logic. It's like what makes sense. And when we say rhyme and reason, that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about rhyming like cat, fat, mat, sat, that kind of rhyming. When people say rhyme and reason, they're talking about logic, like making sense, things that make sense. And I want you to think about what's happened in the kingdom of wisdom so far, especially I want you to think about what's happened to Milo as in Digitopolis. I mean, he was jailed, right? Why was he jailed? Because he was around when something happened, right? And does that make sense? Does it make sense to put somebody in jail for 6 million years? No. But if there's no rhyme and reason, if there's no sense or logic, doesn't that make sense? Doesn't that make you help? I was going to say make sense, which doesn't make sense. If there is no rhyme and reason in the land, no sense in the land, it makes it easier to understand why Officer Shrift might put someone in jail for 6 million years, because it makes no sense, and there's no sense in this place, right? So let's learn about rhyme and reason in the way that Faintly Macbre means it. So, Chapter 6, Faintly Macabre Story. Once upon a time, this land was barren and frightening. Barren and frightening wilderness whose high rocky mountains sheltered the evil winds and whose barren valleys offered hospitality to no man. Few things grew, and those that did were bent and twisted, and their fruit was as bitter as wormwood. What wasn't waste was desert, and what wasn't desert was rock, and the demons of darkness made their homes in the hills. Evil creatures roamed at will through the countryside and down to the sea. It was known as the land of Null. Then one day a small ship appeared on the sea of knowledge. It carried a young prince seeking the future. In the name of goodness and truth, he laid claim to all the country and set out to explore his new domain. The demons, monsters, and giants were furious at his presumption and banded together to drive them out. The earth shook with their battle, and once they had finished, all that remained to the prince was a small piece of land at the edge of the sea. "I'll build my city here," he declared, and that is what he did. Before long, more ships came bearing settlers for the new land, and the city grew and pushed its boundaries farther and farther out. Each day it was attacked anew, but nothing could destroy the prince's new city. And grow it did. Soon it was no longer a city, it was a kingdom, and it was called the Kingdom of Wisdom. But outside the walls, all was not safe, and the new king vowed to conquer the land that was rightfully his. So each spring he set forth with his army, and each autumn he returned, and year by year the kingdom grew larger and more prosperous. He took himself a wife, and before long had 2 fine young sons, to whom he taught everything he knew, so that one day they might rule wisely. When the boys grew to young manhood, the king called to them and said, "I am becoming an old man. I can no longer go forth to battle. You must take my place and found new cities in the wilderness, for the kingdom of wisdom must grow." And so they did. One went south to the foothills of confusion and built Dictionopolis, the city of words. And one went north to the mountains of ignorance and built Digitopolis, the city of numbers. Both cities flourished mightily, and the demons were driven back still further. Soon other cities and towns were founded in new lands, and at last only the farthest reaches of the wilderness remained to these terrible creatures. And there they waited, ready to strike down all who ventured near or relax their guard. So let's take a pause to go and look at our map. So over here by the sea, I can see it says Old City of Wisdom right here. And here's Dictionopolis in the foothills confusion. And let's see, and here's Digitopolis right here up near the mountains of ignorance. So we can see where the 2 sons built their cities, and we can see where the king used to live in the Old City of Wisdom. In the City of Wisdom. All right, let's keep going. The 2 brothers were glad, however, to go their separate ways, for they were by nature very suspicious and jealous. Each one tried to outdo the other, and they worked so hard and diligently at that before long their cities rivaled even wisdom in size and grandeur. Words are more important than wisdom, one said privately. Numbers are more important than wisdom, thought the other to himself. And they grew to dislike each other more and more. The old king, however, who knew nothing of his son's animosity, was very happy in the twilight of his reign, and spent his days quietly walking and contemplating in the royal gardens. His only regret was that he'd never had a daughter, for he loved little girls as much as he loved little boys. One day he was strolling peacefully about the grounds, and he discovered two tiny babies that had been abandoned in a basket under a grape arbor. So another word for arbor must be tree. That's right. They were beautiful golden-haired girls. The king was overjoyed. "They have been sent to crown my old age," he cried, and called the queen, his ministers, the palace staff, and indeed the entire population to see them. "We'll call this one Rhyme and this one Reason," he said, and so they became the Princess of Sweet Rhyme and the Princess of Pure Reason, and were brought up in the palace. When the old king finally died, the kingdom was divided between his two sons, with the provision that they would be equally responsible for the welfare of the young princesses. One son went south and became Azaz, the unabridged king of Dictionopolis, and the other went north and became Mathmagician, a ruler of Digitopolis, and true to their words, they both provided well for the little girls, who continued to live in wisdom. Everyone loved the princesses because of their great beauty, their gentle ways, and their ability to settle all controversies fairly and reasonably. People with problems or grievances or arguments came from all over the land to seek advice, and even the two brothers who, by this time, were fighting continuously, often called upon them to help decide matters of state. It was said by everyone that rhyme and reason answer all problems. As the years passed, the two brothers grew farther and farther apart, and their separate kingdoms became richer and grander. Their disputes, however, became more and more difficult to reconcile. But always with patience and love, the princesses set things right. Then, one day they had the most terrible quarrel of all. King Azaz insisted that words were far more significant than numbers, and hence his kingdom was truly the greater. And the mathematician claimed that numbers were much more important than words. Hence, his kingdom was supreme. They discussed and debated and raved and ranted until they were on the verge of blows. Then, when it was decided to submit the question to arbitration by the princesses, after days of consideration, in which all evidence was weighed and all witnesses heard, they made their decision. Words and numbers are of equal value, for in the cloak of knowledge one is warp and the other woof. It is no more important to count the sands than it is to name the stars. Therefore, let both kingdoms live in peace. Everyone was pleased with this verdict. Everyone, that is, but the brothers, who were beside themselves with anger. "What good are these girls if they cannot settle an argument in someone's favor?" they growled, since both were more interested in their own advantage than in the truth. I want you to pause and think about that. Have you ever felt I wonder if you think about what they said. Both were most interested in their own advantage, or meaning like their own winning, than in the truth. That makes me think about all kinds of things. So let's unpause. We'll banish them from the kingdom forever. And so they were taken from the palace and sent far away to the castle in the air, and they have not been seen since. That is why today in all this land there is neither rhyme nor reason. And what happened to the two rulers? Asked Milo. Banishing the two princesses was the last thing they ever agreed upon, and they soon fell to warring with each other. Despite this, their own kingdoms have continued to prosper, but the old city of wisdom has fallen into great disrepair, and there is no one to set things right. So you see, until the princesses return, I shall have to stay here. Maybe we can rescue them, said Milo as he saw how sad the witch looked. Ah, that would be difficult, she replied. The castle in the air is far from here, and the one stairway which leads to it is guarded by fierce and black-hearted demons. Talk growled ominously, for he hated even the thought of demons. I'm afraid there's not much a little boy and a dog can do, she said. But you mind, it's not so bad. I've grown quite used to it here. But you must be going, or else you'll waste the whole day. Oh, we're down here for 6 million years, sighed Milo, and I don't see any way to escape. Nonsense, scolded the witch. You mustn't take Officer Shrift so seriously. He loves to put people in prison, but he doesn't care about keeping them here. Now just press that button in the wall and be on your way. Milo pressed the button and the door swung open, letting in a shaft of brilliant sunlight. Goodbye, come again, shouted the witch as they stepped outside and the door slammed shut. Milo and Talk stood blinking in the bright light, and as their eyes became accustomed to the first thing they saw were the king's advisors rushing toward them. All right, this is our last couple pages. Ah, there you are. Where have you been? We've been looking all over for you. The royal banquet is about to begin. Come with us. They seemed very agitated and out of breath as Milo walked along with them. But what about my car? He asked. Don't need it, replied the Duke. No use for it, said the minister. Superfluous, advised the Count. Unnecessary, stated the Earl. Uncalled for, cried the Undersecretary. We'll take our vehicle. Conveyance, rig. Char-a-banc. Chariot. Buggy. Coach. Brougham. Chandradon. They repeated quickly in order and pointed to a small wooden wagon. Oh dear, all those words again, thought Milo as he climbed into the wagon with Talk and the cabinet members. How are you going to make it move? It doesn't have a... Be very quiet, advised the Duke, for it goes without saying. And sure enough, as soon as they were all quite still, it began to move quickly through the streets, and in very short a time they arrived at the royal palace. So, at the end of this chapter, next chapter we'll learn about the royal banquet. At the end of this chapter, we've heard Faintly Macabre's story, and so here is the Mountains of Ignorance, and up here is to the castle in the air. I want you to think about, who do you think is right? Do you think that King Azaz is right, that words are more important than numbers? Do you think the mathematician is right, that numbers are more important than words? Or do you agree with the princesses of rhyme and reason that they are both equally of importance? Let me know in the comments.